Welcome to District Command Central, your go-to source for the latest news and updates on the Washington Commanders. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a play. Brandon Coleman's journey with the Washington Commanders has quickly transformed into a cautionary tale, a reminder of how ruthless and unforgiving life in the NFL can be when expectations collide with reality. The once promising young guard, a third-round pick in 2024 out of TCU, now finds himself watching from the sidelines, inactive for the second week in a row. For a player who was supposed to be part of the team's long-term foundation in the trenches, this fall from grace speaks volumes not only about Coleman's current trajectory, but also about the cutthroat environment within Washington's locker room under new head coach Dan Quinn. Injuries have plagued the Commanders this season, leaving the roster thinner than anyone could have anticipated heading into Week 4 against the Atlanta Falcons. Jayden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, Percy Butler, Noah Brown, and John Bates were all ruled out, forcing Washington's coaching staff to scrape together a workable lineup. In situations like this, decisions about inactive players are usually automatic. There isn't much wiggle room when so many key names are unavailable. Yet even in that desperate context, Coleman did not make the cut. That says more about his standing within the team than any press conference explanation ever could. Instead of suiting up to provide much-needed depth, Coleman sat while veterans like Preston Smith, still regaining football shape after a late signing, occupied the same list of inactives. When Cliff Kingsbury tried to soften the blow earlier in the week by suggesting that Coleman's absence had something to do with lingering injury concerns, it felt like coach speak designed to protect a player's confidence. After all, NFL coaches know that sometimes the most damaging thing you can do to a young player is let the public see just how far they've fallen behind. But then came another game day, another roster shuffle, and once again, Coleman's name appeared as a healthy scratch. At that point, the facade fell apart. This wasn't about health. This was about performance, trust, and the simple reality that right now, Washington feels more comfortable moving forward without him. Chris Paul, who stepped in at left guard against the Las Vegas Raiders the previous week, didn't just fill the void, he thrived. The former seventh-round pick seized his opportunity with conviction, proving that he belonged and earning the confidence of his coaches. So, when it came time to put together the lineup against Atlanta, the decision was straightforward. Reward the guy who delivered when called upon. That meant Coleman, despite his draft pedigree and potential upside, was left holding the clipboard. This is the brutal paradox of the NFL. Potential can get you drafted, but performance keeps you employed. Coleman has the size, the college tape, and the draft status that screamed long-term starter. But the league isn't patient, and the Commanders clearly aren't either. The fact that Washington didn't even keep Coleman active as a backup option is perhaps the most telling part of this entire saga. In a league where offensive line depth is precious, the idea that the Commanders would rather risk going light than trust him in a pinch underscores just how steep the hill has become for the young lineman. Coaches will always say the right things publicly, emphasizing the importance of development and patience. But behind the scenes, their actions speak louder. Right now, their actions are telling us that Brandon Coleman is an afterthought. That doesn't mean his career is over, but it does mean that the margin for error has evaporated. He's no longer being groomed as a starter in waiting. Instead, he's fighting just to prove that he belongs on the 53-man roster. For Coleman, the path forward is clear but far from easy. He must accept that Chris Paul has outperformed him, that Andrew Wiley is entrenched, and that Sam Cosmi will soon return to further complicate the guard rotation. Patience becomes his greatest weapon, but patience only matters if it's coupled with relentless work behind the scenes. That means refining technique, improving conditioning, and finding ways to impress in practice, where coaches quietly take stock of who's ready when the unexpected happens. Coleman doesn't need to say the right things. He needs to show them every day in the meeting room, in the weight room, and on the practice field. Teammates notice. Coaches notice. Eventually, opportunities come, often when someone else goes down. The question is whether Coleman will be ready to seize his when it inevitably arrives. If not, the NFL is merciless. There's always another young prospect eager to take that roster spot, another undrafted player hungry to prove himself. This is not how Coleman envisioned his second season in the league. Nobody enters the NFL expecting to be a healthy scratch, while players drafted after them are thriving. But sometimes adversity becomes the defining chapter of a career. Will this moment be the spark that ignites Coleman's growth, or will it mark the beginning of a slow fade into irrelevance? Washington's decision-makers have already shown their willingness to move forward without him. The onus is now on Coleman to force them to reconsider. This moment should serve as a wake-up call, a reminder that draft status fades quickly once the pads are strapped on. For the Commanders, this situation also underscores the unpredictability of roster building. Injuries have ravaged their depth chart, forcing them to rely on unheralded players and reshuffle their plans almost weekly. Yet, even in that environment, where desperation often dictates decisions, Coleman was left out. That tells you everything about how much work lies ahead. For Dan Quinn, this isn't about personal vendettas or lost faith in Coleman's long-term potential. Coaches live in the present, and the present demands results. Quinn can't afford to put players on the field who aren't trusted to execute. Cliff Kingsbury, tasked with rebuilding the offense around rookie quarterback Jayden Daniels, needs stability up front more than anything else. The offensive line must protect the franchise investment, and that means playing the guys who inspire confidence, not the ones still trying to figure things out. Chris Paul earned that nod. Coleman did not. It's as simple as that. Coleman's story is a reminder to every young player in the NFL. Nothing is promised, not even for third-round picks. You can go from projected starter to inactive in the blink of an eye. And once you fall behind, catching up requires not just talent, but resilience, humility, and an almost obsessive drive to reclaim what was lost. What makes this narrative sting even more for Washington fans is that Coleman represented hope when he was drafted. Offensive line help was desperately needed, and Coleman's blend of athleticism and power seemed like the perfect answer. Instead, a year later, he's on the outside looking in, while others who were once afterthoughts are carving out meaningful roles. That's the NFL in a nutshell. A meritocracy where reputations don't block anyone, but performance clears every lane. For now, Coleman's reality is defined by watching, waiting, and working in silence. The headlines will continue to focus on Jayden Daniels' development, Terry McLaurin's absence, and the defensive struggles that Dan Quinn must address. Coleman will not be in those headlines, at least not until he earns his way back. Still, football careers are not linear. Some players explode out of the gate, while others take years to find their footing. Coleman has time on his side, but time only matters if he treats each practice rep like it's his last. The Commanders will continue moving forward with Paul and Wiley, and once Cosmi returns, the guard rotation could be locked for the foreseeable future. Coleman can either fade into the background or use this adversity as the fuel to reinvent himself. Fans may not see the work, but his teammates and coaches will. And in the NFL, that unseen grind often makes the difference between a brief career and a lasting one. Ultimately, Coleman's story in Washington is still being written, but the chapter we're witnessing right now is far from flattering. A promising young guard finds himself sidelined, his future clouded by uncertainty, his name buried beneath others who have stepped up when it mattered most. If he can rise from this low point, it will be a testament to his character and his determination. If he cannot, this may be remembered as the turning point when Washington quietly moved on. That is the harsh reality of professional football, a reality that Brandon Coleman is learning the hard way. If you're enjoying the coverage, make sure to smash that like button and drop a comment with your thoughts on the Commanders' latest moves. We want to hear from you. It is official, and it feels like one of those moments that will be remembered in NFL history for years to come. The Washington Commanders, a franchise that has spent decades searching for that spark, that identity, that one move capable of changing the trajectory of an organization, have pulled off the unthinkable. They have landed Tyreek Hill. Yes, the same Tyreek Hill who has torched secondaries across the league, who has become the face of speed, explosiveness, and pure terror for defensive coordinators. And now, he is no longer a dream or a hypothetical trade scenario whispered in fan forums. He is officially a Commander, and the first name that comes to mind when you connect this blockbuster to the current state of the team is Jayden Daniels. The rookie quarterback, the new face of the franchise, the #1 pick brought in to be the savior of Washington football, suddenly finds himself with arguably the most dangerous weapon in the NFL lined up at his disposal. Imagine being a young quarterback stepping into the league, with all the pressure in the world on your shoulders. You're drafted high. Fans expect miracles. The media is ready to nitpick every throw, every read, every mistake. That was already the reality for Daniels, who arrived in Washington carrying the weight of hope from a fan base desperate to turn the page. Now, instead of being thrown into the fire with a patchwork group of weapons, he gets Tyreek Hill, the cheetah himself, the man who can turn a 10-yard slant into a 70-yard touchdown in the blink of an eye. This isn't just a signing or a trade. This is the Commanders sending a message to the league, to their fans, and maybe even to themselves. The rebuild is over. The time to compete is now. For years, Washington has struggled to find stability at quarterback. It has been a carousel of names, a blur of short-term fixes, experiments, and disappointments. But bringing in Daniels signaled a fresh start, a new era. The question was always, would the Commanders actually invest around him? Would they give him the weapons he needs to succeed? Or would this turn into another story of wasted potential? Well, that question has been answered emphatically. Tyreek Hill is not just any receiver. He's a once-in-a-generation type of player, the kind who bends defenses before the snap, the kind who forces safeties to backpedal the moment he enters the field. With Hill on the outside, every other player in the Commanders' offense instantly becomes more dangerous. The running game opens up. The secondary receivers find themselves in single coverage. Even the tight ends get room to breathe. This isn't just about Hill catching passes. It's about the gravitational pull he creates on the field. And think about what this means for Daniels specifically. One of the hardest adjustments for any rookie quarterback is dealing with NFL speed. The windows close faster, the defenders are sharper, the margin for error shrinks dramatically. But when you have Tyreek Hill, those windows don't just open, they explode wide. Even a slightly mistimed ball can turn into a completion because Hill's acceleration creates separation few defenders can match. Even an off-script play becomes dangerous because Hill thrives in chaos, able to shake loose and turn broken plays into highlights. It's hard to imagine a better safety net for a rookie than the fastest man in football. Of course, the ripple effects of this move will be felt across the league. Defensive coordinators who were already spending sleepless nights preparing for Hill when he was in Miami now have to rewrite their game plans entirely when facing Washington. The Commanders, once seen as a rebuilding project, suddenly become must-watch television. Networks will clamor to put them in prime time. The stadium will buzz in a way it hasn't in decades. Fans who had grown cynical, who had been burned too many times by false dawns, will feel something real, belief. And in sports, especially in a city starving for success, belief can be as powerful as any scheme or playbook. There will, of course, be skeptics. There always are. Some will say Hill is getting older, that speed fades, that Washington gave up too much to bring him in. Others will argue that pinning the hopes of a rookie quarterback on a superstar receiver could backfire, that the pressure will only intensify. But anyone who has watched Tyreek Hill play knows he is not just a speedster. He is a craftsman, a precise route runner, a competitor who thrives in big moments. He doesn't just stretch the field, he tilts it. And pairing that with a young quarterback eager to prove himself could be the perfect storm. Consider, too, the cultural impact of this move. Washington has spent years battling negative headlines, struggling with off-field issues, changes in ownership, and a fan base that has grown weary. Bringing in Hill is not just about what happens on Sundays. It's about rebranding the franchise as a destination for stars, as a place where winning is the priority, as an organization willing to go bold when the moment demands it. It's about giving Jayden Daniels not just a teammate, but a partner in building something special. A quarterback and a receiver growing together, feeding off each other, rewriting the narrative of a franchise. The locker room will feel it too. Imagine being a young receiver on the Commanders roster. One day, you're grinding, trying to make your mark, and the next, you're sharing a huddle with Tyreek Hill. That kind of presence elevates everyone. It raises the standard of practice, of preparation, of professionalism. It teaches through example, because Hill has been to the mountaintop. He's won at the highest level, and he knows what it takes. For Daniels, that mentorship will be priceless. For the coaching staff, it will be a gift, allowing them to stretch the playbook, to get creative, to lean into the speed and versatility Hill brings. And for the fans, this is nothing short of a dream. Washington has longed for a superstar who excites, who electrifies, who makes them proud to wear the team colors. They have that now. Every time Hill touches the ball, the stadium will hold its breath. Every time Daniels drops back, the possibility of a game-breaking play will hover in the air. Football is entertainment at its core, and few pairings promise to be more entertaining than a rocket-armed rookie and the fastest receiver alive. Thanks for tuning into District Command Central. Make sure to subscribe and follow us for all the Commanders news you need. Until next time, keep the faith and hail to the Commanders.